This is Dirshu Mishnah Brura. We've skipped a little bit so that we're slightly up to date. And we're going to be beginning Hilchais Birchas HaPeiros, which is really the next section in Chelek Beis in the Shulchan Aruch over here. Siman Reish Beis, Siman that the Machaber coins as Dine Birchais Peiros Elon, the halachais of fruit tree brachais. Says the Machaber Seval of Alcohol, Peiros Elon Mevarich V'Tchila Bayrei Priya Eitz. On all the Peiros Elon, what is the bracha that we make? Teaches the Machaber, Bayrei Priya Eitz. Chutz, except for Mehayayin. Shemavarich alav Bayrei Pri Hagefen. This is aside for wine. Wine you do not make a ha'etz, rather wine you make a Bayrei Pri Hagefen. Bein Chai, Bein Mevushal. Anyone that's learning Dirshu's Amid Yaimi, we just learned this in the Gemara and Brachais. Whether it's undiluted wine, whether it is cooked wine, all forms of wine, grape juice, you make a Bayrei Pri Hagefen. Bein Shu Asui. Konditon, which is what? Tahainu, shenaistin boy dvash. You put into your wine honey, pilpulin, and pepper, still make a very priagafen. Says the Ramav in this Arev Yayin b'sheichar. You mix wine with beer, azlinan acher haroif. You go after the majority of roiv hayayin b'varich b'ari priagafen. You make a hagafen b'maroiv sheichar mivarich shahakol. We have to see, is this by all drinks? People mix wine, grape juice with water, with seltzer and other type of drinks. Is this rule of Raiv a rule across the board? Let's see. But we begin with the Mishnah Berurah. Sif Katan Aleph, that in all Peiros Eilan we make a ha'it, says the Mishnah Berurah. Whether Bein Mishivas Aminan, Bein She'inan Mishivas Aminan is irrelevant. They all are a ha'it. Chutz me'ayayin, the only exception is why Mimeshu Soyed Halev, number one. Umisamchay, number two, satiates and gladdens the heart, and therefore, says the Mishnah Berurah, kava loy bracha b'fnei atzmai, therefore it has its own bracha. Bayrei Priya Gafin Sivkatan Gimel, says the Mishnah Berurah, Vafilu Zav Me'atzmai, and even if it flows on its own, Mehanavin Beli Jericha, you didn't even have to squash it, it just flows out of the grapes. It gets the bracha of ha'etz, says the Mishnah Berurah. V'im ta'o birich al hayayin b'yer b'ri ha'etz, let's see, made ha'etz on wine. Ayin, like I want to reach chesed, tezva Mishnah Berurah, we will get there. Bein mevushal, whether the wine is cooked. Ta'yidei abishal ein mishtana hayayin l'kriyusa. Why? Because cooking does not ruin the wine. Vein chilik bein bishal yayin kufa yishabishal anavim. Whether you cook the wine, you cook the grapes, vatzimukim, or the raisins. K'dei lasos mem yayin. On all these scenarios, you make a hagafen. Sivkatan hey ainu shenaisin vafel bishanishtana the time of a rechal ta'yidei zeh mima shayakaidem. If you put honey, if you put pepper in your wine, it changes the taste. Still, it doesn't ruin the wine and therefore it retains its agafen. Vayayin ikar legabi idach lefikach varchan alav bayre pri hagafen. Davash upilpulin, honey and pepper. Vafilu shlish davash. Even if it's a third honey, ushlish pilpulin, and a third pepper, v'yaser mizeh. Afilu achi ayayin is the ikar. Shem lobo rak la shabiach. Ulatima, important words of the Mishnah Berurah, that if the item is only coming, according to Tashbates, to enhance the wine, even if it's large quantities, you have a third honey, you have a third pepper, which Berurah says, Yishmizah, what the cutoff is not clear. It says the Mishnah Berurah, it's enhancing the wine. That means it's wine. That means it's agafen. B'sheicher sevkata zayin v'sheicher shel kol minim shavim bazeh, all types of beer, levan mimini mashkin, aside for liquid shepoig minu mafsidim tam hayayin. Now we have to see, what does that mean? it removes the taste of the wine. Once it's mixed so much that it loses the tam hayayin, then it's a shahakal. This is a regular ikr and tafel, says the Mishnah Berurah. So it goes by Roiv. Roiv is the ikr of Amiyat is tafel hu loy. So what is the bracha? Mavarich b'yipri agafen v'ushlan isbatel. Tam hayayin al deit haroivis. It has to be that the taste of the wine is not bottled. Bavim haroiv sheichas if gotten yod v'loy dami. Lo the kaim lan the konsim reishal tevei bagod dai. Sheish biyayin. Over there we're going to see in Siman reish dalit. It's enough if the wine is amat yoyser me'echad b'shisha neged amayim. The wine is a little bit more than 1/6 of the water. It's not the same ayin sham. Why? Why is it not the same? The way to dilute wine is with water. Valkena, therefore, you can't be mevatalik, because what are you doing when you pour in the water? You're diluting the wine and it's creating one entity. That's how you create wine. And that is the reason why, as long as you have yayin ma'ati yoiser, a little bit more than echad of shisha neged mayim, you have 1/6 of the wine and 5 parts water, it sounds like. But because it's there to dilute, that's how you're creating the wine. It's not a problem. It's not normal to do meziga with sheikhar. It's like 2 minim. All goes by the roiv. Va'ayin bebir hagrab. Look, in the Gain says the Mishnah Berurah, Shadaitz Ladina, Tikam Binyaninu Shavalim Zigas Yain V'Mayim. The Gain holds our din also is the same thing when it comes to water. So let's go to the Dirshu over here. Dirshu begins, number 1, Peiros Ilan. What is the Hagdara of Ilan Lini and Bracha? We're going to get to in Siman Reish Gimel. If you made a mistake and you made a Hadama on a Peiros Ilan, we'll see in Reish Vav. But we'll see that Lamaisa in general, you're going to be Yotzei because every tree grows from the ground. So what is the inherent qualities of yayin? Very important. Mishnah Berurah Sivkat and Beis was what? That it's soyed halev, it satiates the heart, and it gladdens it. Says the Dirshu, note number 2. With regard to Beracha Hamazon on wine, we'll see in Siman Reish Ches, Yotze B'di'evet, and Mishnah Berurah explains why. Because wine has qualities similar to bread that it satiates. Sivkat number 3 in the Dirshu. Now we get to the $1 million question. The Mishnah Berurah just taught us that why is wine so special? It's soyed and it's misameach. It gladdens. Now gladdening seems that is the quality of the alcohol. So what do we do with grape juice? Says Dirshu note number 3, even though grape juice is not misameach, that does not have this quality of alcoholism, doesn't gladden the heart, still it's a hagafen. Says the Shlamizam and the Mechashlema. Why? Because it could become wine, therefore it has a din of wine. Now, continues the Dirshu, what if we have grape juice that they bishul, they pasteurized, and it no longer could ferment, and it no longer could come wine? So is it still considered a Bayer Briagafen? Says the Shlamizalman, yes. Why? Because once it gets the name of yayin, once it was soiche, once it was squeezed from the grape, therefore it retains that name, and therefore it will always be hagafen. And similarly, writes Dayan Weiss in the Minchas Yitzchok regarding to grape juice nowadays that are mixed with other items, and it cannot ferment to become wine, still is a hagafen. Rav Vosner, Neshevet Alevi, says the same thing. Even though they do things to the grapes that it will never ferment, lemaisa, it's still hagafen. You can make kiddush on it because it's only at the moment that it was squeezed. And famously comes along Rav Elyashiv. And Rav Elyashiv in Ilchas Pesach says that grape juice is you're not able to come to ferment, it will never become wine. The bracha is a shehakol, and only im yimzigu b'chilik echad yayin al shloish chalak kemitz yesh lachshivai ke yayin. So he wanted to say that if you have 1 portion wine and 3 portions grape juice, then you can make a agafen, because then it's like doing any form of zigas hayayin. And even though such wine, shem, are weak, are not considered wine in such a shear, And of course, this is the very famous Rav Elyashiv, that grape juice he was very against. But Lemaisa, they quote Rav Elyashiv that in places that grape juice is made from concentrate, in order to prevent the fermentation, and it can never it's going to be like the Beis Yosef that says it's going to be a shahakol because it's just made from a mixture. And now, fine. Now that's Rabbi Yashiv Shita. We all know that Lamaisa, we paskin, you make a guffin on it. There's also many different minor nuances within the Shita Rabbi Yashiv will mention. There are some types of grape juice which are 100% mitz, 100% juice, which they say Rav Elyashiv was maskim. An interesting idea. They said to Rav Elyashiv, what happens if someone made kiddush on some of these grape juices? The Rav Elyashiv held was a shahakol. Rav Elyashiv said that he made the wrong bracha, but was he yotze kiddush? Like, interesting chap. Rav Elyashiv said, yeah, of course. Why? Because it's chamar medina. Because everyone drinks it. Everyone makes mistakes of Rav Elyashiv. But lamaisir yotze kiddush. But okay, we all know that our psak is we make hagafen on it. Now, it continues Dirshu. What about cognac, which is something that comes from mikiter shal yayin, I guess smoking and other things? Says the stipler, the chazoin ish, it's a hagafen. However, the Kaf Chaim comes along and says, even though the Rav Yaakov and the Marxia says, shevarch al yayin sroif hagafen, but the Machzik Bracha says the Chida brings right from the Tashmitz and the Radvaz that it's not yayin, and therefore you should make a shahakol. Why? Because it does not look shein lo mare v'tam yayin iklal, and he writes that is the minhag. Continues over here in the Dirshu, in the Sefer Halachos Kitanos, yayin saraf or yayin gomer that changed to be better, you make a shahakol, and Pri Megadim sounds the same. I do think cognac, many do say a hagafen on it, but it could be there are different types. Let's not get involved in that particular right now. We'll continue for a moment. Dirshu number 5 quotes the Pri Megadim that grapes which are zav by themselves, they are a hagafen. Pri Megadim says it's not the mashmayis of the Chamin Moshe that it has to be something that you squeezed on your own. Savik brachas lahakel, which we'll get to. Fine. Now it says that via the bishul, it doesn't ruin the wine. Says Dirshu note number 7, kiddush on yain mavoshel or on wine with honey. Says the Shulchan Aruch and Reish Ayin Beis that there's two shesh and shtei deyos. If this changes it for the worse, Mishnah Berurah there says should not be makadish by gafen on it. However, lahalacha he says even though leading kiddush, there's some who are chayshesh for the yesh oimrim not to make kiddush on yain mavoshel, but for the bracha we make a hagafen, and therefore lemais it is hagafen. In the kiddush world is a maila not to make it on mevushal. Regarding wine that is pasteurized, says Rishlem Zalman Auerbach, even those that hold yain mevushal, you make a shahakol, but pasteurization is still going to make a hagafen. Why? Because it's just to kill the germs and it keeps the entity of yain. Something we wrote about extensively. I think you could hopefully get it back in the stores, Wine, Whiskey, and Halacha. If not, reach out. We'll get you a copy. That Lamaisa, Bishul, and pasteurization is the exact same thing nowadays. There's no such thing as Bishul, and that is what is done to all the wines. Big Shiloh with regard to Yayin Nesach. But for the Bracha, which we're talking about right now, you would, yes, make a Hagafen on it, and whether it's the best for Kiddush, that would be this Shiloh. We're going to stop over here. We're going to stop over here. We'll pick it up from Sif Beis in the next year. B'siyata Dishmaya.